People are still talking about that dramatic and unprecedented moment at the Republican National Convention when Senator Ted Cruz told GOP delegates to vote their conscience and was booed off the stage. In recent weeks on this program, both Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald and Trump delegate Van Mobley said it was time for Wisconsin Republicans to get behind Donald Trump. Governor Walker and House Speaker Ryan essentially said the same thing in their convention speeches last week. But what about people who simply refuse to board the Trump train? What do they do now? We're asking conservative commentator Brian Fraley of Edge Messaging in Brookfield. Brian Fraley, good to have you back on the program.
Thanks
you
for having
have
me,
been a never Trump guy.
Yes.
You are still a never Trump
Yes,
guy. So nothing happened at that convention that caused you to perhaps rethink your position?
No, I mean, they nominated the guy that I'm against, so nothing changed. He gave a good speech, whatever, but this party is now the party that booed a candidate who said we need to focus on liberty, the Constitution, freedom, and voting our conscience, and then exalted a candidate who talked about big government solutions to our problems and how, as an authoritarian, he will just stop it and fix it himself.
But what about the people in your own party now? You've got the Senate Majority Leader, Scott Fitzgerald, said, look, we've got to think big picture here. We cannot do something that will end up electing Hillary Clinton. And Governor Walker said the same thing. A vote for anybody other than Donald Trump is a vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I fundamentally disagree with that. I disagree with the calculation. People have their votes that they can decide who they want to vote for based on whatever qualifications they are. And it's up to politicians like the Majority Leader or the Governor to make the case for themselves despite who the nominee is. So when you ask what do Republicans who don't support Trump, what do they do now? In Wisconsin, they work their tails off for Ron Johnson. Because Ron Johnson needs the Trump fans, the apathetic, and the never-Trumpers. He needs all of them together and independents in order to win. He is in the race for his life. The Trump nomination makes it much tougher for him.
You think it does?
Yes, so it's important that all Republicans focus on this. And even the governor, when addressing the delegates at a meeting on Thursday morning, said that the #1 priority for him is Ron Johnson's reelection.
Are you disappointed? I mean, you're a proud conservative. Mm-hmm. You've been the proud conservative for years. Are you disappointed in some of the leaders of your party? Are you disappointed in the governor and House Speaker Ryan?
It is disheartening to see how the governor has gone from saying a couple of weeks ago people should vote their conscience, and unless Trump backed off his comments about the racial makeup of a judge preventing him from being able to be impartial, backing that off and then not only just acquiescing and accepting Trump, but grabbing two pom-poms and being a giant cheerleader for him. That is disconcerting. I understand why the governor and why Speaker Ryan and why a lot of politicians are saying we got to back our party's nominee. I get that, but the level of enthusiasm, and you own it now. You've got your guy, he's your guy, and you own everything, the good and the bad.
Take me into your world right now.
Yeah.
What's it like? Because there are Republicans now who are saying, hey, I don't like what you're doing.
Oh, a lot of them, yeah. Look, for me, it's not personal, okay? And it's part of the reason why I dislike Donald Trump so much. The vulgar, personal-driven, Lion Ted, Carly's face, dopey Scott Walker, all that kind of, that personal nature of it bothers me. So I don't take it personally. I don't take it personally if somebody endorses Trump, and I don't take it personally if a friend of mine or a colleague or a peer says that I should as well. Unfortunately, for a lot of people on the Trump train, it is very personal, and you get a lot of abuse. I can handle it. It hasn't hurt and affected me business-wise, because a lot of what I talk about business-wise is effectively communicating a message. And frankly, the brand and messaging of the Republican Party is being severely damaged here, regardless of what happens in the election. And I think Trump could win. But regardless of what happens in the election, the Republican Party is transforming right now, and not in a positive way.
You say he could win.
Yeah, he could win.
If he did win, what do you think would be the end result?
I think there would be an enemies list that he and his team would go after to belittle and critique and clamp down on people who didn't support him. I think he would support Supreme Court justices. He says in the vein of Scalia, but I think he would take conservative justices, but those who would allow him to expand the authority of the executive branch. He is not going to nominate someone who's willing to who wants to curb his powers. He won't do it. He's not a dumb guy.
I asked you about what this has been like for you, but you know, there are probably Democrats out there licking their chops saying, oh, we love the fact that Donald Trump has driven a wedge.
Yeah, but
into
they've
the
got
party.
problems too. They've got loads of problems.
Do you think this does any long-term lasting damage to the party, for example, in the
Yes.
state of Wisconsin?
Possibly. I mean, the good news
Because
about
you do have strong personalities who are on completely opposite sides
Right.
of this argument.
The good news is, though, is that these are smart people that can come together on things like Ron Johnson, like addressing public policy needs that we are looking at coming forward in the budget. So, but if it gets into an us versus them, and you're not with us, so you're against us kind of mentality, like if you vote for anyone other than Trump, then you're not a good Republican. Yeah, that could have long-term damage.
Brian Fraley is a conservative commentator, and he is the president of Edge Messaging, a never Trump guy, still.
Still.
All right. Thanks very much for being with us
Thanks,
today. Next, the polls. Just how accurate are they this year? And are they underestimating Donald Trump's popularity? That's coming up next on Upfront.